I gotta start making some power moves, and so should you, in the garden to let these tomatoes know, hey ladies, let's wrap it up, let's finish these fruits, get them into the kitchen, get them into the pantry. Because I want this video to be helpful to you now. I hope you get this so you learn this stuff if you don't know it already, and can do the same thing at home.
Yes sir, today's video is all about turning those green tomatoes into red ones.
These guys here, we're talking about tops and flowers. We're talking about, yeah, tops and flowers right there. Make the sacrifice for your other tomatoes. Look at all these topless girls. Get your mind out of the gutter. If you're really stuck for time, maybe give this a shot, which, by the way, is the tastiest place to do it.
You like a tomato? I make it nice for you.
Friends, today I got a quick but hopefully super useful video for you on how to get green tomatoes to ripen on the vine and maybe even indoors when the gardening season is ending and those tomatoes just aren't cooperating. Have a look behind me. Between this bed here and a few others around the garden, I have hundreds of pounds of green and just barely blushing tomatoes that I have to finish before frost comes and wrecks the plants. And guess what? My first frost is only 3 weeks away, and this is exactly the time I gotta start making some power moves, and so should you, in the garden to let these tomatoes know, hey ladies, let's wrap it up, let's finish these fruits, get them into the kitchen, get them into the pantry. Just before we get started, I'll show you the bed right beside that one we were just looking at. There are hundreds and hundreds of Roma tomatoes in here, one of my favorite canning varieties that are green, man. These all need to ripen, and I can't waste all this time and energy I put into this bed all season long.
Little frickin' jerks.
I'll show you the rest of the beds as we go along and some really cool tomato varieties, etc. But for now, the important thing is to get the show on the road, and there's some really simple stuff you can do out here in the garden to encourage these plants to finish the job they started and ripen these tomatoes on the vine, which, by the way, is the tastiest place to do it. Look at some of these Costelluto Genoveses and Black Crims and Paul Robesons and all these other beautiful varieties in here that are just green and blushing and really gotta finish up.
And despite doing all the right things all season long, sometimes it can be difficult to get them over the finish line.
And the first thing you gotta do to ripen those fruits also happens to be the hardest, in my opinion. You gotta start hacking off all the tops of these plants. Those beautiful growth tops that you've been so carefully encouraging and protecting all season long now gotta get lopped off, because that's where all the plant's energy is going. It's making new green vegetative growth, and you gotta stop that in its tracks. You've gotta make this plant focus all its energy not on that tip, not on growing new leaves and new stems, on ripening fruits. Now, chances are you're a new gardener if you're watching this video and you're scared to top off your tomatoes. It's actually referred to as topping. If you're an experienced gardener, you already know that, and you've probably done it a bunch of times. Here's what I'm gonna say to you about it. It's never pleasant, but you gotta train yourself to do it. It's a time-tested, age-old method, and it freaking works. Lop them off. And as you're going along topping them, you also need to take off any new flowers that are on the plant. These things are gonna start robbing massive energy from those ripening fruits, because it's gonna try and start making new ones. You can't have that at this stage. These flowers are never gonna make fruits that make it to maturity. They gotta go. You gotta pull them off. And right on that very same plant, I've got a very good example of more pruning that you need to do in order to encourage ripening of fruits. Now, if you watch my tomato pruning masterclass video, you already know what this is. This is a sucker. This is a brand new plant being made by this plant. It always appears right between the main stem and a leaf node, okay? And those have to come off. That is robbing energy or sucking energy from your plant and away from those fruits that need to ripen. Every single piece of green vegetative growth has to go at this time of year. And look, there's another little shit on that exact same plant. Bye. And right beside that plant, I have an excellent example of another one of those relatively painful but necessary decisions you gotta make at this time of year to encourage these mostly mature fruits to ripen, when little tiny ones that are never gonna make it before your frost kills off this plant are just sucking energy from these ones that could finish. So you see these tiny little fruits? This would, if it had enough time, turn into a big, beautiful, delicious tomato. Unfortunately, she's got gotta go. Harsh but true. That thing's going in the compost. And it has to go in that compost because every other tomato on this plant, and there's tons of them, needs that energy and actually have a chance of finishing. Oh, and look at that poor little guy, snuffed out like so many birthday candles. His time came too soon. We'll think of you often. And there you have it. Those are the main things you can do to help ripen those tomatoes on the vine where they're going to taste the best. And while you still have time outdoors before frost comes, you're going to pull off all the tops. You're going to pull off all the suckers. You're going to pull off any flowers or little fruits that aren't going to make it. And trust me, just that alone goes a super long way to kicking that plant into overdrive so that it rapidly starts to ripen those fruits because it knows time is running out. You've just let it know that it has to do that. And a quick reminder before I forget, while you're in there doing all this pruning, make sure to get rid of anything that doesn't look good in terms of leaves. Any janky looking blighty stuff or leaves that are infected with another disease, pull all that stuff off there. It's not doing you any good anyway, and you're already in there pruning. Take those off too. All right, I gotta get at it. I have over 80 tomato plants in the ground this year, and I have a ton of topping and pruning to do, as just discussed. But hang on, stay tuned, because as soon as I'm done this, I'm gonna head inside and I'm gonna show you a whole bunch of really interesting and useful tips for ripening tomatoes indoors. Now, do they taste as good as ones ripened on the vine? Not quite, but here's what I can tell you. A homegrown tomato ripened indoors still tastes 100 times better than that cardboard junk they sell you in the grocery store. And there's some very quick and simple things you can do to take a relatively green tomato or an almost completely green tomato all the way to a perfectly delicious ripe tomato. And I'm going to show you how to do that as well. It begins. And do yourself a favor, make sure your shears are good and clean. They're getting a good spray of alcohol so you don't move diseases from plant to plant to plant. This is the most important thing and the biggest caveat about pruning, especially topping at this time of year. You're taking off the tops, you're taking off the suckers. They have no chance of recovering from this point on, so don't go spreading blight, especially around between your plants. It'll kill them off faster than the tomatoes can ripen, and then you're not getting any ripe tomatoes. Go watch my tomato pruning masterclass video if you haven't already. All the same rules apply. Go check out that video, but I'm getting into it. Let's go. All right, guys, I know this feels harsh, but there goes top number one with a bunch of flowers. I see a little sucker up there. Look at these new flowers and top can all go at once. Bye. Leave all these top leaves intact. Really important that they can get some energy and some sunlight to continue growing. Look at these flowers right here. Not gonna make it, bro. I hope that's in frame for you, but those gotta go. And you get the point. There's another top with some flowers. Bye. See ya. It hurts, sucks to be ya, but you gotta do it, man. And you get the point. I'm gonna be going along every time that there's little baby fruits that don't make it. Some of those gotta come off, okay? Bye. That whole top's gonna go. There were flowers on there. Bye.
Don't let the door hit ya.
And again, constantly spraying between plants.
And it's go time. And trust me, if this is the first time you've ever hacked into your tomato plants this aggressively, it's gonna feel weird, but it is the move. You gotta do what you gotta do.
Oh, and look at these poor little guys, snuffed out like so many ducks flying over my decoys in the fall. Harsh but necessary, man. You gotta take these off. None of these little guys would have made it to maturity. All they're doing is sucking energy. Pull them, put them in the compost. That's great compost right there. Make the sacrifice for your other tomatoes.
And as you can see, I wasn't exaggerating when I was talking about aggressive pruning. All those little fruits gotta go. This is no time to catch feelings. Okay, finally moving on to these paste tomatoes, and I got a couple of good close-up examples to show you. So that fruit may make it, but this little guy, no chance. These flowers on here, no chance whatsoever. The top of that plant with a flower on it, no chance whatsoever. All of that's got to come off. Boom. Boom. Same thing with this cluster here. You see this little runter in there? No freaking chance in hell he's going to make it. Leave the energy for those guys. Here's a top with flowers that's got to go. Bye. These guys here, we're talking about tops and flowers. We're talking about, yeah, tops and flowers right there. All the rest intact, collecting energy, helping them to ripen. You want all these leaves to stay. And check out this guy here, like champion. It's got probably at least a dozen, if not 15 giant fruits on it below. It's still trying to make flowers. Like, look, there's some flowers right there. See a guy, like that's just not acceptable at this late stage. I'll give him a wrap, and that whole top with these new flowers is coming off.
Lady, you gotta focus on what's going on down here. Let's see some freaking ripening. I don't care about this green growth, but man, she did a good job. That's the tallest one of the bunch. Tons of fruit on there. Let's finish them.
Getting these fruits to ripen at any cost is the name of the whole game this time of year, especially if you're growing in a cold climate.
Look at all these topless girls. Get your mind out of the gutter. It's legal in Ontario, by the way, ladies. Oh, that was creepy. All right, your toms are all pruned up. Now, the next most important thing to do is start harvesting fruits as soon as possible. Now, I've still got 3 weeks here and some nice sunny weather coming up. It's going to be cool nights, but enough that my tomatoes will largely ripen on the vine, or a lot of them will. But once they start getting close, pull them off those trusses. Pull as many tomatoes off so the plant can focus on the ones that are green or really, really need attention, because eventually, even if you run out of time, you can ripen those too, as long as they get a little bit of a blush on them or the color has turned lighter. Let me explain.
And here's a couple of prime examples right behind where I was sitting. You see that guy there? That's coming off. I'm going to clip that right now. This thing is over 50% ripe. That will ripen in your windowsill, no problem. It actually doesn't need any help. I'm going to show you a whole bunch more tricks and tips, though, to get tomatoes like this that are largely green and just blushing to ripen in just a second. But I'm going to leave that one on for now. Like I said, I've got some good weather coming. It's already got a blush on it. But say if I was running out of time, what if my first frost was coming in a day or two? I could easily clip that off, put it in a box with a whole bunch of other tomatoes, and get that thing to ripen. Let me show you. So now we're moving into phase 2 of ripening tomatoes, and this again is entirely dependent on the amount of time you have before your first frost. Leave them on the vine as long as you can, but if the clock is ticking and you start seeing fruits at this stage of ripeness, pull them off. You can finish them indoors. And yes, in case you were wondering, even cherry tomato varieties will benefit from the pruning off of ripe and semi-ripe fruits. Let that plant focus on the ones that are behind. And as you're seeing here, whether there's just one tomato on a truss that can come off or whether there's 5 tomatoes on a truss that can come off, do it, because every other tomato left on that plant's going to ripen faster. So check this out. I'm in the kitchen, and normally I would have boxes and boxes of tomatoes stacked up, ripening in canning season when my canning tomatoes were ready. They're not quite yet, as you saw on the footage that just came before this, but this is a really good way of doing it, just like stacking boxes. You save a lot of space rather than having boxes everywhere. Get these stackable things. I get them for free at my grocery store. They're dying to get rid of them. And inside there, when the time is right, there will be tons of tomatoes helping each other to ripen. But for now, I just have a few, and let me show you what's going on in there, because I want this video to be helpful to you now. I hope you get this so you learn this stuff if you don't know it already and can do this same thing at home. Check it out. I've got a ton of different tomato varieties, all at different stages of ripeness, all helping each other to ripen in this fairly or semi-enclosed space. Tomatoes make a gas called ethylene gas, and it signals to the other fruits around them that, hey, it's time to ripen, the show's over. And they will do that for each other no matter what the species is. So you just jam them in a box together with a little bit of airflow. You don't want mold and stuff like that hanging around, and you don't want them hanging around in the boxes too long, but that ethylene gas that the riper ones are producing is helping to encourage these less ripe ones to go. Now, generally speaking, if you have enough tomatoes and enough that are well on their way, like these guys, they're going to produce enough gas to ripen each other. But there's some ways you can cheat on this too. Did you know that both bananas and apples happen to make a whole lot of ethylene gas that can help these tomatoes ripen as well? They don't care where it comes from. They just need ethylene gas to make that chemical signal to them. So I don't buy or consume a whole lot of bananas. I try to eat a little more locally than that here, but I do have a lot of apples. I grow apples. Now, I'm having a bad apple season, but you can do this even with a store apple. Let me show you. You just pop one or two of those little bad boys in there amongst the tomatoes, okay, as such, like so, and you don't want them touching a whole lot, but you get the idea. Cover that back over, and they're all making ethylene gas, helping each other to ripen, and these apples are really helping to lift up all the other ones that maybe don't have enough. And I think you get the idea. Cover them back over, and I'll often drape stuff over like a jacket or a little blanket or a tea towel to fill up those spaces and even trap more gas in there, but again, you do want a little little bit of airflow. This does a great job just as they are. And these will now ripen depending on how ripe they are when they went into the box, in anywhere from just a few days to a couple of weeks. And yes, you can leave them in there that long. A couple of weeks is perfectly reasonable for a tomato like that in terms of timing for it to actually get there and be usable. Don't be afraid to just leave these around. The last tip I want to give you is that if you do see anything janky happening in there, if you see one starting to rot or blacken or start to develop spots, etc., you would want to immediately just pull that thing out, eat it, consume it. Don't waste it unless it's really too far gone. Then chuck it into your compost, because in this enclosed environment, especially those fungal pathogens, they'll rip through there like wildfire. You want to put tomatoes that are in good shape to begin with into an environment like this, and they will ripen. And one of the huge advantages of doing this indoors is steady, stable temperatures. The number one thing that will induce a tomato into ripening is nice warm temperatures. Over a certain temperature, I think it's 90 degrees-ish, maybe a little bit more, they just won't ripen at all. They'll sit on the vines and in a mature state and not ripen. What your temperature is in your house is probably exactly what they like. In that 70-degree area, a tomato is going to ripen gangbusters, and it's a nice, steady, stable temperature, unlike outdoors where it's fluctuating all the time, especially at night, right? It gets quite cold. Daytime, it gets really hot. In here is an ideal environment, in fact, for these guys to go and finish up the job they started.
And hey, I got one super duper last tip for you now. I've seen a whole bunch of hullabaloo about this particular method online over the last few years, and I want to say that it does work, okay? It totally works, and I've tried it twice. There's some caveats with it. I'm gonna show it to you. Do you remember yesterday when I was showing you those boxes in my kitchen and I was telling you about throwing in an apple or a banana for that ethylene gas to help those tomatoes ripen? You can do that right on the plants with the help of a plastic bag. All you gotta do is drop this little apple into that bag, or if it's a banana, whatever, and then take the fruits on the truss like that and close them up in there with that apple. Now, when I did it before, I tied the bags onto the trusses, and I had some trouble with the trusses giving up with the extra weight of that apple. So check it out. There's a tie. Let me zoom in on that and show you. So check that out. The weight of the stem of the tomato is generally enough to sort of tie that on and keep all that gas in there. I've seen people use painter's tape to tape that on there. Don't really recommend it, but if you have a lot of rain in your forecast or something, it might be a good idea. Here's the other caveat with this method. You've got real sweet stuff in there, and when I did it, I had a giant raccoon problem. I had raccoons in here ripping all these bags off to try and get these apples, and that could be any number of pests who would go for an apple like that over a tomato before it's ripe. So it is a sort of a hit and miss technique in that regard, is that you could be opening up a whole bunch of other problems by doing it. But here's what I can tell you. They ripen very fast comparatively to being in open air. When you do that, say you were really running out of time and you had a matter of days to at least get a blush on some tomatoes like this so that you could ripen them indoors, or even fully ripen them on the vine if you had enough time. This totally works. There's a lot of extra gas being produced by that apple, which is trapped inside this bag. I think of this as a really last-ditch attempt type method. If you're really stuck for time, maybe give this a shot. Maybe give this a shot just for enough time to get them to blush and then ripen them indoors. But this wouldn't be the first thing I tried. And there you have it. There's all the best ways that I know to ripen green tomatoes: on the vine, which is the preference, indoors if you have to, and then you even have a little last-ditch attempt type method. Good luck getting your tomatoes to ripen out in the garden. Now is the time you got to start thinking about it. Get on it, and I'll catch you on the next organic gardening video. Cheers. And guys, check back in, subscribe if you haven't already. You're gonna see stacks of tomato boxes in here soon. Tons of canning videos coming down the pipe. I make sauces and salsas and chutneys and all kind of fun stuff. I'll be making recipes and how-to videos on those subjects. Huge garden updates coming, etc. I wanna thank you for hanging out. I hope you learned something new about ripening tomatoes. If you're a new gardener, I hope I gave you some food for thought if you're an experienced gardener, and I'll catch you on the next one. Cheers.
Make sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and hit the bell icon for notifications. Chuck a thumbs up on here if you did enjoy the video, and I'll catch you next Thursday at 7.